Hello and welcome to Missed Checkpoints, the Video Game Book Club podcast. Today is another bonus episode. We haven't had one of these in a hot minute. That's on me. I'm your host, Marcus, and joining me today, as always, are the homies. First up, we have Trevor.
I wish I could make a drum beat sound effect or like some cymbals crashing.
Or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And last but not least, we got the homie Dante.
Well, you are right down the street. If I push you into a wall, theoretically, by this game's logic, it should make some beautiful music.
Some beautiful music.
Boom.
The game we're talking about is Ape Out. This was my choice as our bonus game, so I'm going to kick us off. Ape Out is a single-player beat-em-up game developed by Gabe Kuzilo and published by Devolver Digital. We've, talked ad nauseum about Devolver Digital at this point, so just go through our catalog. The game is played from a top-down perspective, and in the game, the player controls a gorilla running through a maze while evading enemies in the form of gun-wielding humans. The human enemies are easily killed with a single attack and can also be grabbed and used as a shield. However, because they're all armed with guns, they can just as easily kill you, the gorilla. The main goal of the game is to escape each level. Each level's maze design is randomized and slightly different on each run, so it's impossible to memorize the layout of a level. One of the main themes throughout the game is jazz music. In each of the game's 4 chapters are represented as jazz albums, even down to the track names and album sides. The gameplay features a loud and chaotic all-percussion jazz soundtrack composed by Matt Bach, which reacts dynamically to the gameplay. Examples include increasing the intensity as the player faces more enemies, crashing cymbals each time an enemy is killed, adjusting the volume according to the speed the player is moving and how many kills you've achieved. There's other things too. When you're playing more slowly, the music kind of fades into the background. There's huge containers that you can hide in, and the music changes when you're in under cover or within cover versus out of cover. So there's a lot going on. In order to provide a reactive and procedurally generated soundtrack, the game draws from a bank of thousands of recorded individual drum sounds and combines them according to the player movement. The system will also match the location of what is happening on the screen to the drum or cymbal, which matches that approximate location on a real drum kit. Each chapter of the game features a different style of jazz percussion, so that the first chapter features the most quintessential jazz sounds, and the chapters afterwards feature more and more unusual instruments for jazz music. The game also features a minimalist art style, which has been compared to that of Saul Bass, a renowned graphic designer known for his motion picture title sequences, film posters, and corporate logos. Saul has worked with some of Hollywood's most prominent filmmakers, including Alfred Hitchcock, Stanley Kubrick, and Martin Scorsese. If you're interested in checking out his style, there are plenty of YouTube videos and compilations of his movie intros, but some of the, I pulled up his work, and some of the just logos that he worked on included the Kleenex logo, the Girl Scouts logo, the AT&T Globe logo, the Hanna-Barbera logo, the Dixie Cup logo, Quaker Oats, Lowry's, United Way, and more.
What's his name again?
Saul, Saul, Bass, or Bass, Bass. The game was developed using the Unity engine. It is Kuzillo's second game, and development began when Kuzillo entered game development courses at NYU, while also working on an independent study with Bennett Foddy. Foddy contributed to Ape Out's art style. Bach, an assistant professor at NYU, worked on the game's music and sound design. Ape Out was a part of the NYU Game Center Incubator and was partially financed by Indie Fund, an organization created by several indie developers to help fund budding indie titles. I looked at what they had funded, and as of right now, they funded over 50 titles, including Dear Esther, Antichamber, The Swapper, Donut County, Hack and Slash, Gorogoa, Her Story, Hollow Knight, and Night in the Woods. One of the main, random aside, one of the main founders of Indie Fun is Jonathan Blow of Braid and the Witness fame. Devolver Digital announced their involvement in Ape Out in March 2017 when they released a playable trailer and at projected release date of summer 2017. It wasn't until December 2018 that the publisher announced Ape Out would finally release on February 7th of 2019. And however, the game was delayed 3 weeks and eventually released on February 28th of 2019 on Windows and Switch. And that is my intro. So first off, had you guys let me go back. I chose Ape Out because I'm a big fan of it was something that was on my radar when it came out, and I was, some of the gaming podcasts that I listened to were interested in it. I wanted to play something that was pretty short because obviously it's a bonus game. I wanted to play something that had a style. And this game has hella style, and I wanted to play something that was compatible, or you could play it on Switch, because I know that was something that Trevor likes to do. So I was like, let me throw my homie a bone and try to pick a Switch game as well. So that was why I chose Ape Out. What did you guys play on, and what is your background, or had you heard of Ape Out, played it before? And I'll start with you, Dante.
So, at some point, I played about maybe 5 minutes of Ape Out. I thought I played it on Xbox, but apparently it's not out on Xbox. So, it must have been, I guess, the Epic Game Store, because that's the only other place I can think of that I might have had it. But, obviously, I've played a lot of Devolver games, and I've also familiar with Bennett Foddy just because of his... I'm going to go ahead and call it a meme game. It's called Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, which is a very... I guess you could call it a staple of Twitch, where like a lot of people play it, and they're just expected to rage by the time they get done with it. And that's pretty much my history.
I had no idea. Because I had always called it Getting Over It. I never called it Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. So cool. I did not know that. Trevor?
So I've played this game on Xbox, and it was back in December of 2020 when it was free on Game Pass.
How? Were you playing it through PC? Or...
Yeah, I played it on PC.
Okay. I don't know how Game Pass works okay, go ahead.
Well, I believe if you have a subscription to Game Pass, it allows you to play the Game Pass games on Xbox, and you have access to the Game Pass games on PC, the ones that are available.
Gotcha.
And that was around the time I'm still teleworking, so I started teleworking last year. And every now and then I'll look at the Game Pass games on PC, like while I'm sitting at my desk working, and I'll just try to find an indie game just to play it. And I've streamed a couple of games that I've played, but Ape Out was one of them that I streamed a while back, and I never finished it on Xbox or on Game Pass on PC. So when we came back to play it again for the bonus cast, I ended up buying it on Switch.
You're welcome.
But I probably do have it on the Epic Game Store. I didn't even check there because I was looking through some old messages to see when I actually started playing Ape Out the first time, and I saw Dante's message saying that it was free at one point. So I think I probably have it on Epic Game Store too, but I would have bought it on Switch anyways.
Yeah. I played it on Switch. I think the game controls very beautifully on Switch. It's an ideal way of playing. I played it in handheld mode. Yeah, the controls, everything worked. Can we just wax about the style of this game? Can we just talk about the style of this game?
Let's do it.
Yeah, so I had seen screenshots and everything of this game, and I had heard about the procedurally generated, soundtrack, and we have a history, or we played what was it, Love Trousers, and I was kind of thinking that the soundtrack would sound similar to that, where it was just kind of like pseudo procedurally generated. It was just kind of like, oh, it'll change, but like after doing the research and everything in the music, I had no idea that it was as extensive as it was in this game. Even down to, I heard that like depending on where you throw somebody against the wall will change the sound effect it makes, which is like kind of crazy to me. But even before then, I really, really just visually the kind of like stop motion paper mache kind of style 2D artwork. I was really feeling like just when you even just boot the game up and are watching the developer listings and just that main menu, I was like, yo, this game looks very, very slick. Did that immediately draw either of you
Oh
in?
yeah, definitely. As a graphic designer, like I've always like when I, especially when I was a student, I've always used more minimalistic design because it just is it's very striking to me a lot of times, and that's the first thing that stood out about this game is not just the the cover art and the menu design, but the actual gameplay
Mm-hmm.
is the same style of art. Everything has like a really cut out um, type of feel, and it's, I mean, it works. They use a very minimal color palette as well, but it's all colors that kind of stand out against each other. Even like if you look at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
cover art, they use like orange and yellow for the character that you play as, the ape, and it really stands out against a lot of the backgrounds that you're in because the color palette changes between levels, but at the same time you're still like this orange or yellow color, and everything else is maybe like darker greens or purples.
Browns. Yeah, I
Hmm.
really, really like how everything is communicated so clearly. Like you're never like looking at something despite the lack of like a lot of detail. You're never like, I can't tell what that is, or I don't know what that is, or anything like that. Everything is communicated so clearly, and it's easy for everything. Everything stands out.
Yeah,
Or
and
I
even
shouldn't say, yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
even without the color, everything has its own silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that also helps you distinguish between enemies and yourself and different objects in the environment.
And another thing that I really, and like we're kind of getting into the actual level design a little bit, but like another thing that I really, really, really enjoyed that is like super subtle is the top. You're playing from a top down perspective, but the rooms, like, it shows the depth of field, or like where you're like,
It
thinking
has a little bit of a fisheye effect to it.
yeah, that plus like when you're playing a game like Hotline Miami, it's like, oh, like this is clearly communicated as a wall, but like in this game, like when you're moving past like a column or like a room, you're seeing the height of the wall that you're walking
Yeah,
down.
like rather than it looking like you're looking down over the top of a dollhouse and you can see like the border, like where the outline of the walls are. The walls go all the way up to like your point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it uses that perspective to show like, okay, this wall is going all the way up to where I can see, and I mean, it just. I've
So,
never seen a game do that before. They
Yeah.
always just like kind of cut it off and say, okay, this is your field of view right here, and everything
it's
just kind of looks
actually
like a dollhouse.
pretty genius, all in all, because it does a very good job of communicating to the player. Oh, this is the not only this is your vision cone, but this is all of the enemy's vision cones as well. Because like if the enemy is not on screen, they can't see you, so you know immediately if you go behind something whether an enemy can see you or they can't see you.
Yeah, and it's just like, I think it's very hard to. I don't know if we're doing a great job of like talking about it, but it's like I feel like in most video games, like in Hotline Miami, if you're standing behind a wall, it's just indicated by like a line. And so like the opponent can't shoot through that or whatever. And I feel like in other video games top down, the way they indicate it is they give you a literal field or cone of vision. So anything that you are hiding behind, it does like a little black cone that's coming out that you can't see. But it always feels gamey. And I feel like this was the first time I saw it this way, and I was just like, holy crap, like I've never seen it done this way. And it makes it adds to the chaos that is this game, where you're like being very frantic. I felt like one of the things that I think the music and the visual style, just that stop motion paper mache style, like communicates is just a frenetic, like chaoticness. And I feel like that, even that little touch of like, we're going to extend this column all the way up to the player's line of sight so they can't see behind this thing, kind of adds to it, because you're, at least the way I played this game is like I was always on the move, and it was just like, holy crap, like I'm moving through this room and I'm behind this column now and I can't see anything around there. So it kind of, just the way I played kind of pushed me to go a different way where I could see where I was going. Because like I played in a way that I like didn't stop moving. I was always moving. And so like it just added to the how intense this game felt when I was playing it. I guess we can start with the premise of the game. You are basically an ape that is like, I think the very, very first level, you are kind of like an ape or a gorilla that's behind he's in captivity in like some type of like research lab facility. And you break out. It's very similar to the game we played earlier this year, Carry On, where you just break out and now everybody is reacting to you breaking out.
That was the game. I couldn't think of it. I was like, man, we've played a game like this before.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that one is more Metroidvania. This one is more
Right.
Hotline Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So you break out and immediately the game it displays the controls on the floor of the lab as you're moving out. And another cool thing that the game does is it just displays the controls. It doesn't tell you what the controls do. So it's like on the player to kind of experiment and see what each thing does and like kind of develop their own playstyle. Granted, the controls in this game are very simple. Let me know if I missed anything, guys. The left joystick moves the gorilla. The right joystick kind of positions your body in the direction you're pointing. So it's almost like a dual joystick shooter, except for the only thing that the right joystick kind of does is just faces you in the direction. The left. Go ahead.
The right joystick does something?
Yeah.
Okay. If you say
Could have
so.
fooled me. I don't think I ever used it.
They didn't at least tutorialize it or anything.
They do. It's not in the very, very beginning. It's a little bit into the game. I think it's I want to say it's the first
I'm not
time.
disputing you. I'm just saying I never used it.
Yeah. I think it's the very first time you pull one of the doors off the wall and you can use it as a shield. I think that's when it tells you that you can use the right joystick to just turn yourself. It's very slow. It's not like as quick and responsive as a normal.
That kind of.
I guess the
makes
thing
sense
I'm confused
because in situations like that, when you're holding the door, you do move slower.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll play it again and try using the.
You can do the same thing with humans too, with the shields.
But
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
the door
I
just
just did
moves
that
really
with the
slow when you're
left
holding
joystick.
You can definitely use the left joystick for sure, but it's not like I said. This is like a dual joystick light, so it's not like I'm trying to think like Geometry Wars. If you're playing, the left joystick moves, the right joystick is where you're shooting at, and if you don't use the right joystick, you're never gonna change like your direction you're shooting. In this game, your monkey is always going to be looking in the direction that you're moving the left joystick, but you can use the right joystick to kind of turn your monkey when you're holding doors and or enemies. it's
I
kind of like
believe
you
you.
can
I think I
strafe.
see what you
You
mean.
can strafe,
Yeah.
basically.
Because the left joystick, I mean, for all intents and purposes, is your um, acceleration. You're moving forward, and it moves you in whichever direction you're pointing. Whereas the right joystick just turns you, and not necessarily moves you forward.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I don't think it. I mean, obviously, it didn't affect either of you.
Yeah.
Not using the second joystick, so you can definitely beat the game without it. I think it gives you a smidge more precision if you want. I have issues with playing dual joystick kind of things on the Switch, anyways. So I wouldn't say it's super precise for me, but I have big hands.
I mean, I can see in certain situations. I'll wait till we get to that point in the levels where you meet certain enemies,
Yeah,
and you don't want to move forward. You just want to turn in their direction.
yeah.
So I could see where that would come in handy.
Yeah. So yeah, left joystick, right joystick, left trigger. It grabs enemies, and then the right trigger is a shove, and you can push enemies. And that's really it. Obviously, there are more things you can do. So when you shove somebody, you can shove enemies into other enemies. You can shove enemies out of windows or out of the environment. You can shove. You can break glass. You can also just run through it, but you can use it to like break glass. And then the grab mechanic, you grab people and kind of use them as human shields. You can grab doors or and rip them off of their hinges or whatever. And yeah, that's basically the general gist of the game. Enemies are very weak. They take one hit to kill. So you push an enemy into a wall, they explode into a pool of blood. You can push enemies of equal strength into each other and kill both of them. You can use enemies as human shields, so you can grab them and then kind of just walk slowly to other enemies that are shooting at you and like let them take the bullets. So there's a little bit of depth in that. I guess you can say very little depth. But what did you guys think about the combat? Just this two mechanics, I should say.
They worked really well. It was just the way I played was a little bit of stealth and a little bit of. I mean, I mostly almost always move forward, but at the same time, like I was very good at like baiting enemies out and getting them to chase me a little bit, and then just coming back around the corner and pushing them. So it was a lot of fun. Just kind of. It was pretty much Metal Gear, if I'm being honest. Like, it has the exact like top, like Metal Gear Solid 1 specifically, where you have the top-down angle. And it's like you have these guards that have, their little guns with lights at the end of them. And I'm like, okay, he's coming this way. Okay, he's turned around. Let me just get behind him. Metal Gear Solid, you choke him out. This one, you push him. Same concept. So, yeah, I immediately got taken back to that.
Yeah, I think that at first I was like, oh, this is all you can do. But then I was thinking like
But it never gets old.
Yes, exactly. I was worried when I played the first chapter. I was like, oh, so like I'm not gonna get any new abilities or whatever. Like, is there really not much else to this game? But then you get the complexity and like the layering in this game is the enemy types and the levels and like the things that they start introducing on each of the levels.
Yeah, this is, in my opinion, more of a puzzle than like. It's not a combat-oriented game. It's a puzzle-oriented thing. So it's like the same way Hotline more or less is. It's about figuring out what to do in each scenario. Okay, there's two of these enemies here and like one of the rocket enemies. Now, which order do I need to take them out? Do I need to use stealth to like bait one over here? Can I just push this guy out the window?
Yeah,
and then you just you're kind of making it up as you go. That's the thing I really liked about this game. Like,
it ties into the jazz.
I was going to say that you make it up as you go, and I played a little bit differently. Like rather than looking at it from which enemy do I need to take out first, I was more so of like which direction do I need to go so that I have the least amount of enemies looking at me.
The Sekiro approach.
Pretty much. Like if I wasn't so to go back to Marcus's question as far as like the combat mechanics, you have a certain range where you can grab enemies. Like once the enemy comes onto the screen, it has the potential chance to see you and turn around and start shooting. And I think once it sees you, there's almost like a countdown timer to when it fires the first shot, or depending on which enemy type it is, it begins firing whatever weapon it has. And so, depending on where you are on the screen and where the enemy is, you have a certain amount of range where you can get to it to grab the enemy or push them before they start shooting you. And that was kind of how I would gauge which direction I would go, kind of fight or flight type situations. And if there was anything between me and the enemy, and of course you have to determine like what weapon the enemy's holding and whether or not you actually want to engage them.
In case you want those problems.
Exactly.
The other thing too is it's not just when they see you. I felt like sometimes it's when they hear you too, where you're like, if you triggered another person to shoot you, or one of the things with using a human shield is once you grab somebody, there's another timer where the person would use their gun, whatever gun they're holding. And so that was really cool, because that was where I felt like a lot of the or some of the combat depth started to really show itself. Was there was multiple enemy types, so there was enemies that held shotguns, and then I think that was primarily it in the first chapter. And then they started introducing other enemies, ones that hold rocket launchers, ones that hold flamethrowers, explosive enemies that have some type of body armor, enemies that use machine guns. And so once you start dealing with those enemies, like every single enemy, when you use them as a human shield, reacts specific to that enemy type. So they're all going to shoot their gun or whatever, but the guns have the different like powers or abilities. So like if you were to use a human shield on a shot with against the shotgun person, okay, cool. Like they, shoot the shotgun at you, the human that you're using dies, and then you're good. But if you were to use a human shield against a rocket launcher person, you would die. If you use your shield against a machine gun person, their first bullet is going to, even though they kind of spray erratically, the first bullet that hits the shield is going to kill the shield, but then they still have way more bullets, so they're going to be shooting. So there's a strategy that's involved within that. The explosive enemies, once if you use them as a human shield and they die, they explode. They're kind of like suicide bombers in a sense, and that takes you out too. Same thing with if you use a flamethrower person, you catch on fire. So like there was like the enemies became in a sense parts of the puzzle, and I thought that was like really 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 cool. They all interacted a specific way. You could kind of use them to take out rooms, but like I said, there was a strategy that I kind of had where I was like, oh crap, I accidentally grabbed this person. Let me go ahead and shove them into this wall before they shoot, because that was a stealthier way. That wouldn't draw the attention of somebody shoving an enemy into the wall, wouldn't grab attention to the other enemies the same way if I held somebody as a human shield and they heard a gunshot go off. And so I thought that was really, really also just great game design.
Yeah, and one of the things that I definitely like, another comparison to Metal Gear, is sometimes you want the other enemies to hear you, so I'd intentionally like let an enemy shoot a gun or whatever. So, and then it's like, oh, I'm at the beginning of this corner. They hear that shot. They're all going to come running. triple kill.
Yeah.
Kill-tacular.
It was like setting up. You're setting up kills too. So it's like, okay, I know this room. I can see there's 4 people in there, but they're kind of all spread out. But if I grab this guy that's in the corner and like quickly drag him into the other room, let him shoot, then the other 3 are going to come running in a line or something like that, you know?
Yep.
I don't know. Like it was like the enemies, the AI themselves were like very. Once you learn their pattern, it was like your hook, line, and sinker. You're just playing them like a puppet, the master. But it was so satisfying to do that, to set it up, to like knock it down. It was almost like you're setting up dominoes, like a big, like elaborate domino project, and then you're like, okay, tip it over, and then you just like see how everything unfolds in front of you.
Yeah, and there might only be like 7 different enemy types. There's regular soldier, armored soldier. There's like the guy that shoots the pistol and runs.
The smaller enemies.
Yeah. There's rocket launcher dude.
That's 4.
And
Machine gun is 5.
Machine gun, yeah.
Explosive is 6, and flamethrower is 7.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. And sometimes the, I guess, bigger soldiers, they have a variety of weapons they can use, but...
Oh, yeah, they had a sniper one, too.
There's sniper, and then there's the guys like the big soldier, they can have just a regular rifle, they can have a shotgun, they can have a machine gun.
Yeah, and I had mentioned earlier too. So like the bigger guys that have the armor, they are like basically considered the tier 2 enemies. So if you were to grab a tier 1 enemy, which are basically any of the other enemies, and shove them into them, they just stumble back. They don't actually die unless you shove them into they're really close to a wall. So there's that strategy too, where it's just like, do I have a tier 1 enemy or am I holding a tier 2 enemy? Because they also, as human shields, they take more bullets. So like,
and I like the visual too, because you can see on the enemy, like once they get shot, they start to lose their armor, and then you see them naked, and then if they get shot again, that's when you lose the shield.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, going back to the crap.
Did you ever mention the limbs?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So when you push an enemy into a wall, they become a bloody mess, like we said earlier. But you can pick up potentially some of their limbs from their corpse, and then you can use those to throw them at enemies. So
I never did that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never
Really?
did
Yeah. Oh, it's super helpful.
Yeah, like it doesn't kill enemies like when you throw an enemy against another enemy, but it it just stuns them, and so it's useful like if you have a ton of space between you and the enemy.
If you're like in a big open room. Oh yeah, so I remember the point. So like for the most part, I would say like all the tier 1 enemies take 1 bullet or 1 shove, they die. The tier 2 enemies, they take 1 shove, they die, but they take 2 bullets. And then you as the monkey, you can take 3 hits. And I feel like the game does a great job of visualizing and showcasing your health without giving you some type of health bar, because one of the things we didn't say is there's no HUD to this game. Like all you're seeing is like the action that's playing out. So when you take like a hit of damage, you have like when you're moving, you're leaving behind a small like blood trail, and then if you take a second hit of damage, it becomes a bigger pool of a bigger blood trail, and then on the third hit you die. So I feel like the game also does a good job, and I didn't check. I don't know if that if your blood trail, if the enemies react to your blood trail. I didn't notice that, but I think it is like a great way of relaying that information to the player without putting some type of health bar or anything on the screen.
Another cool thing, and this is kind of different, but it goes along with the visuals, is when you walk through a pool of blood, like the enemy's blood, you leave footprints too.
Yeah. Yep. There's going to be big pools of blood too, because you're killing lots of people. Let's see, the other thing I really want to shout out, like again, like I think a lot of what we're doing is praising the game design in this, is I think the game does a really good job of kind of like teaching you how to play the game without teaching you and like explaining it to you. Because I was very much I'm just a shover and I'm killing everybody and I'm just going and I'm going and I'm going. And at one point there is a sequence where like you rip this door off a wall and you're walking down this long hallway, and it's a super long hallway, and there's multiple enemies, but you don't know that at that point. And you could hold on to the door and use that as like a shield because it's wide enough that no enemies can walk around you. But obviously I was just like, let me go ahead and throw this because you're moving really, really slow. And like that was one of the things that dissuaded me from wanting to use human shields, is because there's a significant difference. You're like moving half speed, would you guys say? If that, maybe even more than half speed.
Yeah, probably about half.
Yeah.
And so like I really like playing this game fast paced and kind of playing more reactive. So I was like not doing the grabbing a lot. And then when you're going down these long hallways, you're seeing enemies, and they're kind of staggered in a way that it's like grab one and then there's an enemy like coming up, and like when you're shoving them, it's fine, you can get far into that hallway, but at the end you're fighting a lot more armored enemies and they're a lot more grouped up together, and it becomes, I would say, next to impossible to kind of play it the shoving way. And then that's when it clicked for me, and I'm like, okay, I have to use both of these. I can't just like, which is stupid, but
I don't know about that.
What
You can like, as long as you make contact with the other enemies, then shoving perfectly works there. Just because everything gets staggered.
Yeah, like you were shoving enemies into enemies, but I felt like that was a really, really elegant way of showcasing like you need to use your full arsenal. And I felt like there was a couple of instances where they were like, where they trained you, or it was like it was a lot easier if you did it this way versus the other. And I thought like it was, instead of it being like, oh, we're going to show you a tutorial or we're going to spell this thing out, like they did it seamlessly within the game. And I thought that was really just like a kudos to them. I wouldn't call that.
Yeah, I definitely got to say, like, I can't speak for everybody, but the tutorialization that this game does certainly worked for me, where it was very minimalist. They put the words stylishly on the ground at one point, and then they kind of just trust you as a player to figure out the rest.
Yeah.
And they do create certain scenarios where, like Marcus said, it behooves you to perhaps play certain ways, but they don't necessarily force it on you or like spell it out to you in a way that is very blatant or obnoxious.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I like how my playstyle switched was one of the things that this is something that I've always liked in games, where you can, after you beat a level, the game kind of zooms out and like shows you the entire stage or whatever. Like the thing I'm thinking of, the game I'm thinking of is Super Meat Boy. So like say you play level 4-3 and you die 50 times, and then on your 51st try you beat it. The game kind of stores your runs for those other 50 times and shows you all your routes and shows you where you veered off and everything. And this game doesn't quite do that, but every time you die, the game zooms out and shows you like the map of the level and shows like a little like tracing of the route that you went. And it was very cool to see that, especially in the later levels, because the later levels become to get more massive and more elaborate. And then it was just like, oh man, I'm spending so much time in this first room, and there's like 4 other like giant rooms right after this, especially like that last level break-in. Where it was just kind of like, oh, I got to pace myself a little bit better and not go in so hot because I got to, play 4 more rooms after this. And then the cool thing too, and I think because the game is, or the levels are procedurally generated. Every time you die, like the bones of the level are still the same, so you're still in the same like overall map, but like key elements, whether it's enemy spawn points, or just structures and everything that you can use to your advantage, kind of get moved around.
Yeah,
And
and it's so subtle that you
yeah.
might not even notice it. Like I noticed the enemies were definitely moving around, and I thought that parts of the level were moving around, but I wasn't quite sure. I'm like, am I tripping? I don't remember this crater or this container being here, or this wall here.
I think
It's kind of throwing me off.
I think it throws us off because you start. Another great game design thing is I feel like you start using the environment a lot more in the later levels, in the later chapters. So
You definitely have to, especially out in that jungle area.
yeah. So in the first couple of missions or levels, like especially when you're in like the office, the laboratory, like there's not really. I think it also kind of is like maybe like I'm looking into it, but like kind of social commentary or whatever, because like office spaces and like those facilities, like they're like not really noticeable, like they're all kind of generic piecemeal. And so like you're not going to notice like, oh, this little cubicle is a little bit bigger now, or this desk isn't placed here, but you're going to notice things like this car is parked here, this container is moved to the side over here, or this explosive barrel is placed over here. So I thought that was like really cool. And like you said, not something I didn't realize it was going on in the first chapters, but then when I was later on in the game, I was like, who put that explosive barrel there? Or like, oh crap, now I got to deal with a rocket launcher enemy right off the bat versus before I was dealing with a shotgun enemy or something like that. So it adds like a nice little challenge as well that I really really like. And then beyond that too, like one of the cool things is each. I mean, there's a lot of different style things that we can touch on. The way when you start a new level and how the music kind of comes in, and then the text for the level, the name of the level, or like the quote unquote name of the track pops up is really like stylized and just very stylish. But each of the chapters are kind of themed after an album, and there's a side A and side B that are kind of like natural breaking points between the levels. So I think for the most part, you play 4 levels. That's a side. So like chapter 1 is 4 levels in an office building, or excuse me, in a laboratory, where you're learning the game. And I feel like the B side is the silhouette, like the lights go off in the facility, and so like the whole vibe of the level is completely different because now you're seeing a bright white outline of your character in a very dimly lit laboratory facility, and you don't see enemies anymore. You just see the beam of their flashlight, the cone of the flashlight that's attached to their gun, and it gives the game a completely different like aesthetic. One, it just looks completely different, but then just like the whole pace of the game completely shifts. I feel like. What did you guys feel about the difference, that tonal shift just within the same chapter?
For me,
Maybe I wasn't. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, for me, it really added to it because like that first half, like when you're on side A of each chapter, it's I mean, it definitely leaves you wanting more at the end of it. So it doesn't feel like a definitive end to each section, like when between like side A and side B. But I'm glad they brought that element into it because I mean, it just follows the theme of like the records from when you start the level, or each section of the game, or each disc. They have it sectioned off by the different albums, so I'm glad it adds to that theme. But for me, it just seems more like a continuation of that level.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really notice too much of a difference between the A side and the B side in a lot of the cases, but the design of all the levels was great. Like I can't really fault it at all for that. And one of the things, like I played it on the channel, so
Like I have the video and I'm actually watching a little bit of the gameplay right now. One of the things I wanted to bring out about the style, I like the it's not film grain. Maybe you have a better you guys might have the term for this, but like how a black wall has kind of like static-ish texture to it that's moving all the time.
That's stop motion. I tried to explain it to our mutual friend Thomas, and I was like, you know the little intro screen when you're watching Rugrats, and like it goes to, you know, so that
in the main logo and stuff.
Yeah, the background is always constantly moving. It's like they're slightly making like shifts on the graphic every single frame. So like that frame of wall is just being repeated, I don't know, 15 frames, 30 frames, 60 frames. I have no idea.
But it's kind of like flickering between.
Yeah. So like that's what's going on, and like they're doing that constantly with elements within the game, within the main menu, within the loading of or you know the title screens, or the level title screens. Like it's just constantly going on.
Yeah, anything so cool. That isn't silhouetted, and even I guess the walls are technically silhouetted and so. Well,
it's basically everything. And like I think that adds to the how chaotic this game is, because the game is always constantly moving. I feel like the music is always constantly reacting to what you're doing, and then the way you actually play it. Like I think everything about this game kind of pushes you in the direction of never stopping moving, and I don't know. I just think it's like great.
I'm sure you guys are probably more familiar with it than I am, but you guys know about like call and response jazz.
Sure. Yeah.
So this game seems kind of like based on that concept where like the game is reacting to everything you are doing, in a different way than like every game reacts to what you're doing. But this game in specific, like there is musical cues. There are like just elements that it's all so cohesive.
Yeah.
In a way that like.
So the way the music is going is there's like an underlying, like kind of percussive drum track going on, and then it gets louder or softer depending on the action of it, that like how quickly you're moving. There's one of the things we didn't talk about is there's like a little hitch to the movement where when you hold a left stick in a direction, there's like a startup to the not the animation, but the speed. You're not going full speed until you like hold that direction for maybe a second or two. So it's not like a major hitch. But I feel like that kind of adds to the frenetic pace of the game, and then also just the music where you're like, you have this drum beat that's going on and it gets louder and quicker as you're moving, but then on top of that, whenever you're doing an action, whether it's pushing or grabbing somebody or something and killing somebody, like when you push somebody into a wall, there's a crash of a cymbal, and so like you're linking kind of this stuff together to create this music as you're going, and it's always hectic and loud and chaotic, and like every single element kind of is tied together to this jazz theme, and like everything is so cohesive. And then like we were saying with I think the tonal shift is the most apparent in the first one, the first disc, where you know you're in the lab both times. Side A and side B, but side A is like kind of teaching you the basics, and side B is like a little bit more stealthy because the lights are out and you know all that things. But then the next couple of discs are a little bit different. So the disc 2, you're in an office building and you're going down the floors of an office building, and like a skyrise or a skyscraper, and it's cool because one of the things, so at this point the only kind of environmental thing is like kind of the lights going out, but in this chapter it introduces elevators, so like more enemies popping up onto the floor you're on, enemies repelling into the buildings. I think later on the side B side, you've transitioned over from a completed skyrise, like for whatever reason I think the top 50. Go ahead.
I was gonna say there are elevators in the first.
Oh yeah, in the laboratory. Gotcha. But yeah, with the skyrise, I feel like the top 50 floors or whatever are like completed, but for whatever reason you're running away from these people and you transition to this building that is a skyrise that is like not. It's currently being worked on. So it's like lumber and things are there instead of being an office space. And so like they have a sniper that's trying to shoot at you. So like if you're out in the open, not behind something, you can see this red beam that's, focusing in on you. And then I want to say the third disc is when they introduced the woods and the / jungle. And so there they introduced the flamethrower enemies. They also introduced kind of explosive barrels, so you have to deal with that. And then later on they have these bombs that drop. So like you're running and then just like a random bomb that pops ahead of you and you have like a second or two to get out of its blast radius or it's going to explode. So kind of adds that. And because that level is way more, or that particular chapter is way more open than a lot of the other ones where before you were in buildings and like in rooms, and this one is you're like out in the jungle. And then the last disc is a ship, and that one is kind of like a culmination of everything. So you have all the different enemy types. They introduce container barrels that you can get in and out of, or shipping containers that you can get in and out of. They still have the explosive barrels, trucks that you can hide behind, and they're just much larger levels because now you're trying to piece together everything you had learned prior to this. I I don't know, man. I didn't realize I liked this game as much as I did until I'm here talking about it. Like before, I was like, yeah, like the game was fun and everything, but now, like when I'm talking about it, I was like, that game was freaking awesome.
Yeah, I figured you'd like it because back when I played it on Game Pass, it was maybe a little while after we had played Hotline Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, yeah, this seems like it'd be right up Marcus's alley.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, it checks all the boxes, dude. I think it's like so well designed, and I feel like everything ties together. I'm not especially like a jazz person or like into jazz music. I appreciate it, but I don't like listen to it, or it's like my normal genre of music to listen to. But I just really like how the sound track was created for this game. I really like how reactive it is, and I really like the art style. So I would highly recommend Saul Bass for everybody out there to like check out some of his film intros, because a lot of what they do in these level intros is very similar to that. And even just like his art style for the movie posters that he did, like I think he did the Shining movie poster and Vertigo and The Man with the Golden Arm and like some of those movies, and like a lot of his aesthetic is very reminiscent of this game. Or I should say this game is very reminiscent of his. So it kind of like ties in a lot of things that I really like into a nice neat package that is this game. Did you guys have anything else to add gameplay wise?
One thing I did want to say is I do appreciate this game's anything that can be done to you can be done to an enemy. So like if a flamethrower enemy shoots flames and catches something on fire and another enemy runs into it, they're on fire. If an enemy's close to an exploding barrel and another enemy shoots it, they're going to blow up. So I don't know, this game just works. That's what I'm trying to say.
The friendly fire in this game is pretty I don't know, it's just it feels rewarding.
It does. It really does. Especially like if a rocket guy tries to shoot you around a corner, and I've had them blow themselves up occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Those rocket dudes were like snipers. Oh my god!
Because you hear the like before it even happens, and so if you wait too long, sometimes you can juke and get out of the way of it. But I mean, I never
got hit by one.
You wait, what? Say that again?
I never got hit by a rocket.
Oh, my man was playing. He was playing Metal Gear out here, man.
I was watching Dante play.
You just run up to them. You just run, like, literally is, if you can see them on screen, you have enough time to get to them before they shoot, as long as you go immediately to them.
We play differently.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was watching Dante play, and like there were a lot of times where you were like engaging enemies that you didn't even need to. Like I saw where you were in high rise at one point, and you would get to the stairs, and then all of a sudden I would see you turn around, like because you saw enemies. Like, dang, why you?
Hey man, you got to make sure, like, you don't want them coming up behind you, because what if somebody shoot? What if one of those MFers shoots, and then they're like, "Oh wait, I need to go that way." You gotta think. You gotta play that 4D chess. You gotta be thinking ahead.
I did play that way. I'm interested to see how you guys all played or like hear about it. But I definitely played the way Dante played in the very beginning, where I was like, I'm not leaving nobody in this facility alive. I don't care if it's the janitor. I don't care if it's the cafeteria lady. I don't care if it's the lady at the front desk. Everybody is getting these gorilla paws.
I ran past a lot of stuff. Like, there were certain times where I probably could have kept going, but sometimes you want to make extra sure, like, nobody's going to come up from behind. That's always my biggest thing from stealth games.
Well,
but
I played it like I played
my general strat, like, and this, it started in pretty much 1-1 and persisted to the end of the game. Like, I would take the lower route as much as possible, unless, like, it wasn't viable, and then I'd go up.
Oh, so you would kind of like hug the walls, you're saying?
Kinda. Like, I would always take the lower route and then just try to figure out the best option from there.
Did you even do that on the dark levels?
Pretty much, yeah.
Huh.
Like,
okay.
The only thing I did differently with the dark levels was, you're talking about the ones where you could see the flashlights and stuff? Yeah, so I would watch them, see their flashlight turn towards me, wait until they turned around, and then just rushed them.
Yeah, I always ran to the light on the...
Oh.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Because
that's why the light is there.
In my head, it was a horror movie, and I was just like,
no, you don't run towards it. You're bad at horror.
No. You
better not play Resident Evil like that.
I was the monster, and I was like, I'm finna F your day up. You turn that flashlight on around. Oh, you put your back to me. Oh, you getting snatched and thrown.
You sneak up behind him. That's what the monster does.
Yeah, I would sneak up. I would literally. That's what I did on those levels. So like the first chapter, and I would say the second one too. I was like clearing out everything, and I was like, I'm doing zigzags, and I'm going to every single room. I'm killing everybody. Because it's like y'all ran these tests on me. Y'all gotta go. But I think later on, like especially I think the high rise level, I kind of was like, let me just start going, like you said, and kind of sticking to the walls. I really liked that level too, because you could throw people out the building, which was always rewarding. So then that was one of the benefits of like sticking to the walls there, is you could throw people out the window. And the same thing once you got to the boat, where you could throw people off the boats and into the water and everything. So that's when I started to like kind of play your strategy, and especially because you're in a more and more complex kind of maze, like a much larger level, so there's more enemies and more opportunities to die. So then later on in the game, just because it got more and more things thrown at you, I was less about let me kill everybody and more about let me take the most efficient route. What about you, Trevor?
I was definitely trying to avoid enemies for the most part, or at least get to a point where I could take out enemies. I could get to like one-on-one with enemies, like shoot me the fair one. But yeah, I wasn't, because I saw a couple of times where Dante was playing, and it was almost like he was corralling enemies. Like he would be playing peekaboo like around a corner or a pillar or something, and like wait till they all gathered, and then he would try to like get multi kills. And I was just like, man, after you get them in the room, just run. But yeah, we definitely had different play styles.
I did a little bit of that too, where I would go into a room, kill everybody, and I would like somebody would see me go into a room, and like I had enough time to like kind of set them up. Yeah, and then I would come around the corner, grab one, and then bring them back to me. That was my favorite.
I was like, as soon as I'm clear, because there were some instances where I would just luck out, and there would be a bunch of flamethrower enemies, and with those you can literally just kind of run past them.
Yeah,
as long as you don't run straight towards them, like they can't hit you. So there was one level where I got lucky, and it was just the level full of flamethrowers. So all I did was run straight to the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
See, flamethrowers were probably like my weakest enemy because I always wanted to like. My strategy was always to run towards the enemy and then push them into a different enemy, but you literally, like, if you try to run towards a flamethrower dude and he has any semblance of time to kind of figure out where you are, he's going to get that hit in. So.
And then on top of that, too, I died so many times because once you kill a flamethrower enemy, there's a little ball of flame wherever they die at. And so, like, sometimes it becomes like a little, like, spot where it's like, I can't run over this spot until the flame dies out. And there were many times where I was, like, already at 2... You know, I threw somebody up against the wall, not thinking about it, or threw them into another flamethrower person, and then, there's a ball of flame right under my feet, and then I immediately died. I think my hardest enemy was the rocket launcher guys. They took me the most amount of... Because I felt like they were super accurate, and that level in particular, the boat levels, they were way more open than a lot of the other levels. So, like, I had to change up my play style and start using the container crates a little bit more, and I couldn't be as quick as I wanted. I had to be a little bit more calculated, and so I was bobbing and weaving in and out of those storage crate containers.
I was going to say you sound like Trevor because I'm like, man, that level was super linear to me. Like,
oh, no.
You bop from crate to crate. It's 100% Metal Gear right there.
Oh yeah, that part.
In, bop, out, bop.
But it took me a while to figure that out because I hadn't been playing that way at all leading up to that point. So it was just kind of like, and like that was one of the things I really appreciated is that the game, as you go on, you have to use the environment more and more, and that was just something that I wasn't doing up until that part.
Yeah, the ship was actually like I only died 3 times on the ship.
Man, I died 51 times.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So I was trying to find my stats at the end, but I think I vaguely remember them. So the first disc, I think I had. I don't remember the times for any of them, but I had 39 deaths.
So I had 12.
The second disc, I had 9.
I had 7.
Third disc, I had 16.
I had 14.
And then the last disc, I had 7.
Dang! I had 51 on the last, like, that last one, dude. It took me forever.
And that's even the one, Trevor, you said, like, the one level took you a while. I don't know what it's called, but it was kind of like linear, and there's a couple of the rocket dudes.
Yeah, Wreck was the one that took me a while. But yeah, that 39 deaths on the first disc, I don't know what I was doing, honestly.
You were learning. So, I don't remember. Do you have arcade mode from the jump, or do you have to beat the disc in order to unlock arcade mode?
I have no clue.
So I think you have to beat each disc, and it unlocks arcade mode for that.
So there's 2 additional modes in the game. So you have the normal mode, or whatever you want to call it, that you play as, which we all played. Then there's arcade mode, which makes it a bit more difficult. So it adds a time limit to each level, and then you only get 1 life for the entire chapter. So if you were to die on the 4th level, you would have to start back at the 1st level. I don't know if I'm assuming there's a score attached to it, tied to it, based off of how quickly you beat it and like racking up like a combo or whatever, but I didn't play arcade mode. Did either of you guys play arcade mode? And then they have harder mode, which I think you can unlock at the same time. Either you unlock it as you go. So I think it might be the same thing where you can play the at least the first chapter, or maybe you have to beat the game. I think you beat the game, then you unlock harder mode. And
no, you have harder before, because I went to the menu a couple times and I saw harder. Harder there. You might have to beat the chapter, but
you have to beat the first chapter in order to do the second and all that. But that one speeds up the enemies, so they're faster. I don't know if that means like both in their movement and like the
reaction time.
Yeah, reaction time. I don't know what that means. But then it also adds a lot more of them. So I did not play either of them. One of the reviews I read said that harder mode was way more challenging than they thought it would be, and they had to play a lot slower than they played. So they said they felt like the purest, most fun way to play the game was the default mode. But it sounds like maybe you should check out harder mode, Dante, because maybe you can...
I was gonna say if I had my two
nitpick.
minor things, like my nitpicks about this game were like, it's the opposite of what I say for almost every other game, where I'm like, I kind of wish this one was longer. Like normally I think games like overstay their welcome, but I could have definitely done 4 more discs or CDs or whatever they call them.
Yeah, it's so weird because How Long to Beat said that this game was 2 hours?
2.5 was the average. Yeah, and I beat it in an hour and maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, and even my time, I think I was an hour and 24 minutes or something like that. So it was like I was expecting it to be almost twice as long as what it actually was. So I 100% agree with you. I wish this game was longer. Obviously not for the sake of for enjoyment. If it was just artificially longer and they didn't it wasn't continuously adding new things, I don't think I would enjoy that as much. But but at the rate it was going, I was like, man, you could tack on another hour. So maybe that is a way for them to prompt people to try harder mode or arcade mode too, to be honest.
True. Yeah, and then the other thing I was gonna say, I do wish it was a little bit more challenging. I know people probably do find it challenging as it is, but I guess I would have been fine if you took 2 shots instead of 3. Heck, I would have even accepted the hotline 1 shot. Probably.
Yeah, I was thinking about what could they have done to, and I think in Hotline Miami they added some type of variability to you could put on a different mask, and each mask kind of had its own power. And I was thinking the same thing, what if they had a mode that was you start with a gun as the monkey, or you're carrying around a weapon, but then you can only take 1 hit of damage.
Yeah. And I think all 3 of us agree that this is a lot easier, or at least significantly easier than Hotline, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
I think so. I think so.
But it's still, who cares? It's a great game. I'm not gonna be oh, the difficulty, I think the difficulty was good. I think it was good.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Did you both played Break In, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So at the very end of the game, so every disc had 8 levels, 4 on each side, except the 4th disc. Side B only had 3 sides, and then they throw this bonus mission called Break In.
So can we?
Yeah.
Did we spoil the end of the game, or say
oh
kind
my
of
gosh.
what?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of lore built up.
That last sequence is pretty. That last level is really good. That last level, the what do they call it? Outro or
yeah.
Oh man, it had a cool level name.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're okay, you're on your way out, and the last thing they have you do is go through I guess a zoo or something, and you're just literally releasing all of these animals, and the animals that you're releasing fight alongside you to get out of this facility. So it almost becomes a really messed up game of Pokemon where I'm freeing these things, and they're just kind of becoming my personas and just attacking my enemies.
Yeah, you're freeing
Oh my
like
gosh.
brown bears and white bears and black bears and jaguars and stuff like that. And so like they're doing, I mean, they can't grab humans or whatever, but like you having all these humans. And it's funny too because this is one of the few levels that has a ton of, I will say, just civilians, people that don't have guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if do the animals attack them too?
They do.
And so like you have like these civilians that are getting mauled by these creatures you're freeing, and also these dudes running around with guns trying to stop you. And like I don't know, it was very rewarding.
And the enemies with guns will shoot the civilians sometimes.
Oh yeah.
They get in the way.
And then so that's the last level, right? Or the Dis 2 side B, or excuse me, Dis 4 side B level 3, right?
Yeah.
So then the next level, break-in, is basically getting you to the beginning. It's like almost like a loop. And so you start in the parking lot of this the laboratory, and you're breaking into the laboratory, and it's funny because you're like, why am I going back into this laboratory? And it's like super big. You know, I think you're playing all 4 levels of the first disc in one level. And you get to the very end and you realize it's the starting point of the first game. And now there's a tiny like miniature ape in the thing that you free and then you put on your back. And then you have to leave.
Yeah. It's a down and back, basically.
Yeah. And, oh, that level was so... I really enjoyed that level because I was just like, why am I going back in? And then you get that... the reveal, and you see, oh, I'm freeing a monkey that's going to be basically in the same situation I was in the beginning of this game, and I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah, the first time I did it, I think I took my 2 hits on the way there, and then once I got there, I was like, oh, and I realized this is the halfway point. I've got to go back.
So the thing that I realized, and I had gotten hit, I think, at least once, maybe twice, by the time I got to the ape that I was trying to save.
The chimp.
Yeah. And then I'm like, wait a second. Let me just follow my own blood trail.
Yep.
So
Yep.
pretty much the next room I had to fight a couple of enemies, but other than that, I was good. Like,
I did that up until I got close to the end. Like one of the times when I played, I don't know if it was close to an elevator, but there was one room where I probably didn't kill all the enemies like on my way there. And so when I was following my trail, there was like this huge room just full of my blood and the enemy's blood and a ton of enemies in there. And so as soon as I walked in, like they just turned around and saw me and just unloaded on me.
R.I.P.
And my little buddy.
Well, I wanted to try to, make this episode not any longer than the game. Do you guys have anything else that you want to cover? Things you enjoyed, or any additional nitpicks that you have? I think we pretty much covered our nitpicks. We kind of just wish the game was longer, really.
I've got a critique by Pal Labyrinth on the Steam forums. Adrift Side B ruins an otherwise great game. For Abandoned Ship Hard, you need pure luck not to be overwhelmed with shooting enemies due to lack of cover. Very disappointed. This is the worst level in any game I have ever played. 100% RNG. Well, he does say on hard, so technically I haven't done it, but he does sound like he's
That's like one of my favorite things to do is to look up the negative reviews on Metacritic. That's what we should have pulled up and see what people have to say about Ape Out. Because I have nothing bad to say about it. I love it.
So, Marcus, did you end up looking up Gabe Cazillo's other games or anything
I
else?
did not. I have not yet.
So the only one that I could find is one that's on like a website. It's gabecazillo.itch.io, and it's a game called Foiled. And I thought it was going to be like a browser game, but you download it apparently. from the website, and just looking at the gameplay footage. It's like a jousting game, kind of like what was the game, Dante? We played it with you through what's the name of that app?
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
Shovel Knight.
Not Shovel Knight. It's the what's the Marcus? You know the one where you're going left and right, and you go into the worm.
Oh, Nidhogg.
Nidhogg, and there's Nidhogg too.
You're on a level similar to Shovel Knight, basically, where you're fencing. And
that's Nidhogg. You're talking about Nidhogg.
I'm talking about this game.
Oh, okay.
Like I know which game you're talking about, but I'm saying the structure of the level is kind of like a Super Smash Brothers level, where the two of you are facing off against each other. It's not like a 2D back and forth game. This is like a single stage. And
so it's like a 2-player couch co-op, not co-op, but like a versus game.
Yeah.
Well, you guys got any questions?
I just want to know what's next for this developer.
Yeah, like I think the main thing for me, like, don't get me wrong, I think this is a very well thought out game. I want to know, would you play another game that has like this?
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to think like what kind of like it's obviously we're not developers, so this is just like armchair developer. But like, what kind of game would that work for? You know, like
you mean like on a AAA scale or
no? Like I'm just trying to think. Like I don't think a sports game would.
Oh, I don't need it to be a different genre. I just need it to be more of this.
Sure, and that's what I was trying to say. I guess maybe the question is, do you think this would work for another type of genre? Like
the silhouetted art style, or
no, the music, the reactive music.
I mean, I think you could do it. Like, heck, the silhouetted levels in Tropical Freeze are 3/4 of the way there. If they just added like some type of, like, Nintendo's very what's the word, like, conservative with their stuff, so I don't think they would go as deep in the paint as Ape Out developers did for their stylistic stuff.
They're worried about the visuals style, not the music style, right?
Well, I mean, Nintendo has good music too, don't get me wrong, but I just think they're not going to, like, since this is indie, they can just go down the rabbit hole all the way, whereas Nintendo, like, they're going to go down a certain extent, but at the same time, they're going to make it accessible to everybody, which I think Tropical Freeze, like the silhouetted levels, kind of toes the line where it's like, okay, well, this is a twist on your regular 2D platforming thing, but it's not, like, I mean, for me to say that that's not crazy, like, I have to say that's in comparison to this, like,
yeah.
Those levels are absolutely beautiful and, like, pieces of art, in my opinion, but compared to this, like, this one really goes all the way down that logical conclusion of, oh, what if we made an entire game based off of those silhouetted levels, essentially.
Can I read you guys 3 negative reviews off of Metacritic, and we call it?
If you want, yeah.
Okay. I won't give you these are just user reviews. 4 out of 10 because game. I'm going to read it verbatim. 4 out of 10 because game have a good style for someone, but game is becoming boring with the time, like, and style that what can annoy you. As for me, it's the worst Devolver's game. All style, no substance. This would have been the 3rd coolest Flash game in 2005, maybe. There is no variety. You see about 80% of what this game has to offer in the first hour. About the same time, the "ooh, it looks and sounds neato" factor wears off. Skip this one until it's under $7.
See, at least, like, that one...
No,
that
this
one
person
has...
said you see what the game has to offer in the first hour. Yeah, because the game is over.
They're not wrong. They're not... See, if I was really salty for whatever reason, I could like, there is a very small kernel of truth in there. the first one was just absolute nonsense. Like that didn't even make sense.
Yeah, I think that
one
was maybe like a not native U.S. or American speaker.
The second one was objectively wrong, but at least I kind of saw the burgeoning of an argument somewhere in there.
This last one, 10 out of 10 style, 2 out of 10 gameplay. Overly simplistic, more reliant on luck than skill. Randomized levels don't work for this game, often ending in unfair, cheap deaths. Really wanted to like this game, but it was just a huge disappointment. Huge difficulty spikes at the end. I'm the type of guy who will finish almost any game or movie, no matter how bad it is. I stopped playing on the 5th level, Breakout. Honestly, don't think most reviewers made it that far.
Okay, Trevor, did you write this back in 2019?
This was written in this year. That was written March 5th of this year.
So we were like, how did he die 37 times? Apparently there's an audience like that. I'm not even making fun of people for being bad at the game, but how do you stop at the 5th level? That's 5 minutes in.
No way.
Literally, that's 5 minutes in.
Yeah, we should read Metacritic reviews more often.
Oh man.
Okay, well, Trevor, great game, great experience.
I would say great game, great experience.
Okay. Dante, great game, great experience.
Ape game, ape experience.
Okay. I will go with Trevor because people know what that means. I'll say great game, great experience. Everybody should play this game. It's pretty fun. It's really awesome.
Only takes an hour of your time.
It only takes an hour of your time. Like I would say, get it, even though it's more expensive than $7. But I mean, if you can, try to pick it
Holiday
up.
sales coming up. It'll probably be discounted on Steam at least.
Yeah. So where can people find you at, Trevor?
You can find me on the internet at Lyric Unsung. I'll probably be streaming some more Xbox Game Pass.
Anything in particular you've been streaming lately, or anything you're looking forward to streaming?
Not really. I've kind of gotten back into Destiny just because some of my friends have been talking about it. But I've also want to try to stream more Game Pass games because that was what I started doing. I think about a year ago, where I was just trying to find like short games that I had access to.
Can you stream Switch games?
I don't have the capability. I only have the Switch Lite.
I was gonna say, go ahead.
Oh no, he's right because he has a Switch Lite that does complicate.
Do you intend to get the OLED Switch?
Probably not. I would more than likely get the Switch Pro if it's like a 4K model.
It's sounding like it's going to be a Switch 2 at this moment.
Well,
turning us into a newscast.
Yeah. The only if I upgrade Switches, it'll be one that can connect to the TV. That way, I would have one specifically for a handheld use and another one to keep at the house.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, had wondering if you had gotten and or started Dread yet.
No, I'm going to get that after I finish a couple other games because I did want to switch just so I could play the next Metroid game.
Mm-hmm.
So I will eventually get it. I haven't decided if I wanted it digitally or physically.
Gotcha. What about you, Dante? Where can people find you at?
People can find me at twitch.tv/misscheckpoints, occasionally streaming video games there. And on my primary channel, twitch.tv/wakeandcloud, I just got done streaming. No, I'm in the middle of Majora's Mask right now. And I will probably start up. Oh, man. Well, you're just going to have to find out what I'm going to start up because I have a lot of things I want to start. But it's only so much time in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can find me on Twitter at Potato Salad. If you like tuning into Miss Checkpoints to find out about hidden gems, cult classic, and indie games such as Ape Out, and share us with your friends, family, and the not shitty subreddit communities you're in. Comment on our Facebook page, add us on Twitter, leave us a review, preferably 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, so we can please your category. Well, yeah. You guys got anything else for Ape Out? Great/ape game. Great/ape experience. Yeah. And with that, we're Miss Checkpoint, so we're out. Peace.